John's Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chris Johnson. Palpable. Paradox.
George.
Chris.
Hey, good to see
How are you?
Oh man, considering I'm doing okay.
It's a wacky time we're living in, is it not?
What? Man, wacky is one of them. Yeah, wow.
Understatement.
Understatement. Yeah, it's hard to how do we even talk about it, right? It's a really
It's a tough thing, It happens now and then, I think about, well, there was the 1918 pandemic, which I was not alive for, but what our parents went through in World War II. You're probably not old enough for that, but that was a hell of a time, and just got to deal with this stuff and get through it, I guess.
Yeah, my dad keeps talking about how he just feels like that it's a cycle that we've experienced before in some aspects, but obviously it's up leveled in every possible way. They've tried to, the people that are interested in doing wacky things and less than human things are continuing to do those things, and they're up leveling their game, So
it's the bad people in this world, and they're the ones who want to sort of be in control of stuff. The nice people aren't the megalomaniacs, it seems.
Yeah, well, that's one of the what an interesting side, because I keep hearing like different pundits talk about how the right is so they don't care to dig in a little dirty and do this little deed, because they're like, they believe so heavily in their cause and that in their entitlement to whatever. Yeah, it's a weird thing that where he, like, I think it was Bill Maher, actually, it might have been one of the guys that talks about it. Like, he said, like, the left just doesn't have the balls that the right has in trying to stand up in the same way. And I don't necessarily believe that, but I think on some level he's right.
I think he's right too. It's Hutch told me something really interesting. That I think the figure is 20 or 25% of all CEOs are psychopaths.
Whoa. And
these are the people who in business want to run things and be in control. And, you look at Amazon, for instance, the richest man in the world, and he's still fighting to pay minimum wage.
Right.
And they said if he gave every employee $105,000 before now, he would still have the same amount of money he had before the pandemic hit. He's made so much money off this pandemic because everybody's staying home like me and ordering stuff. And He could do that. And you know how many people they have working for him. He could give them each $105,000, but yet he doesn't want to pay them, $15 an hour?
Unfathomable, man.
I just don't understand. How much money does one need? Not more than that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this guy. Yeah. Well, this is also like, that kind of makes sense. Like Hutch saying that, that statistic that they're like, you said 20%, you think?
I don't remember exactly. It's a few years he told me, but yeah, it's up there. It's like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of these people are all sociopaths.
That's still really high.
They'll do anything.
Yeah. And you think like I used to joke back in the day, well, about metal bands, like people being angry and like and putting it into making a certain kind of music and kind of being mad at dad, mad at mom. I'll show you. I'm gonna, this is like the thing. And I see it in the corporate world, obviously too. I see it like when people are raised in a way that is like kind of like tough. Not, I'm gonna say that it's all tough love, but like a lot of what we do in life is a reaction to how we were raised, right? And so you have to imagine what it was like to be little Jeff Bezos, like, apparently, like what, who did what to him,
What happened to you? What happened to Trump as a child?
Yeah, exactly.
These people, God. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I find it interesting to be, last time I talked to Bon, when I was there, I saw you guys, was it the Fox Oakland, I think, a year or two ago?
I remember it was Oakland. I don't remember the name of the place, but yeah.
Yeah, Fox Theater, Oakland.
The theater,
yeah.
The old theater,
yeah. Yeah, and I had the pleasure of dining with you guys that night, and there, and Bonnie came in, and we ended up chatting, and I just remember trying to leave and say thank you, and was like, hey, like, you know, if there's anything I can ever do for you, obviously, you know, reach out through any of your bandmates or whatever. And I had brought her a pedal or something that night, and she said, well, you could help me get rid of Trump, you know, and so, and so she's, you know, the cutest, most sweetest, toughest woman that I've ever met in my life. And
yeah, that's a tough combination to do all that.
Right? Oh man, to balance all that in one body,
I know.
I can only imagine. and then have the voice and the wherewithal to act on it.
Exactly.
You know? So, but that sparked another conversation when I was trying to leave, and so we chatted a little bit, and then you know, but I'll never forget that was when I said, hey, is there anything I can ever help you do, you know, or whatever. She was like, well, I do actually have something. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. How are you feeling, man? I mean, like I know it's probably been a long 20 years inside of this 1 year. But
right. But, you know, we're good. We're all healthy. I've taken the new house, the new studio. You know, we moved last October, and which meant I had to move everything, including the studio, which had been in mothballs for almost a year.
Oh, wow.
Because I was on the road and I knew we were going to move, so I packed everything in boxes. So when we finally got here and unpacked, it's a smaller house, and we had to do a bunch of work. But you know, it took me quite a while to figure out how to rewire all that stuff. I do it myself, you know, and don't let anybody do anything for me. So, so we're doing good, and I'm digging the studio now. And like I said, it took me from that October to this October to finish my new album, and it was sort of like that, you know. How do I know if the studio's right unless I record some songs, and then wrote some new songs and kept recording and moving things around, and you know, until it sounded right. But
music sounding good, by the way. I've got 3/4 of the way through it. I got distracted this morning. I didn't get all the way through it.
Oh, that's right. I sent you a link. I forgot.
Yeah, it's great. No, I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
Yeah, the what's the track? One that jumped out at me was "Happiness Is Just Around the Bend."
That's an old Brian Auger song.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, okay. You know who he is?
Maybe.
Brian Auger is a phenomenal B3 player. And he had a band called Brian Auger and the Oblivion Express, who I always loved. Had a great singer named Alex Ligertwood, who sang with Santana for a while. Alex wasn't in the band when Brian cut that song, but I'm trying to remember who had a big hit with it. A soul group had a hit with that song, but I always just liked that riff, that doom, 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 doom. Anyway, that's why I cut it, just for.
Yeah, it popped out, man. It's a driving track, and the title track, "Self-Made Fool," is that the title?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the 3 of the songs were co-written with a guy I've written with a lot over the last 10 or 15 years. His name's Rich Wayland, and he's a great lyricist. And I gave him these little chunks of musical ideas. I said, "Hey, Rich, what do you think? You want to dive in?" And he came back with that lyric, which I really liked. So that's why I named I couldn't figure out what else to name the album. It seemed right.
No, I love it. I love. I'm kind of a fan of this of the Fool philosophy, and that I've come to know more about through like Alan Watts, listening to a lot of his lectures and stuff, and talking about the fool who persists in his folly eventually becomes wise, and that's also kind of like it's a this lifetime thing, but it's also you know, potentially like through an Eastern, like Hindu or Buddhist lens, it's a multiple lifetime thing, right?
Right.
That eventually, you know, you'll work yourself through all the foolishness, and you'll settle down, and you'll kind of.
Hopefully, you'll learn, and you know, if you have any humility at all, you'll figure out some of the mistakes. And
yeah, the humility part, right? We could all use that in these times, I think.
Yep.
What you were telling me a little bit about like how you've been doing, like you guys feel like you're been able to stay healthy and stay isolated and not in the COVID
Yep.
circles.
Yep. Yeah. The new neighborhood is kind of spaced out, and we have 2.5 acres, and so I've been working outside a lot, and we have this dog who I'm sure will make an appearance pretty soon.
Yeah.
And so she's a handful. Yeah. She's 13 months old. She's a Doberman.
Oh,
And,
baby.
very, very energetic. Let's say she's energetic. She's great. Her name's Maisie. And so, yeah, we've been staying healthy and dealing with what we're dealing with and just taking all the precautions. And I believe in science and I believe in mathematics. And I know there are people who know more than I do about a lot of stuff, and I listen to them. So, and that's what everybody, I think, should do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the fact that there are a couple of pockets around the world where the governments actually did listen to scientists and actually didn't have alternative motives
Right.
around things. And I mean, I just look at New Zealand. They even had a little thing where it popped back, but then they just immediately clamped back down. Everybody said, yeah, it fell in line, and it's gone again.
Yeah.
And that woman, I can't remember her name, I guess the prime minister or whatever, she was just reelected, and everybody just loves her. And I'm just like,
fantastic.
Man, talk about dreaming for America. I'm like,
how could we have gotten so far off course? When I think of New Zealand, I know they don't have a lot of people there.
Sure.
But still, it's just whether it's 5 people or 5 billion. You do the right thing, and for people who travel, I've been going to Asia, been Japan, since I believe the first time I went was in the 80s, and as long as there have been sniffles and colds, those people voluntarily put on a surgical mask when they go to work on the subways or walk the streets. Nobody says boo about it. There's no stigma. There's no, well, I'm going to express my freedom and cough all over everybody and get them sick. That's not freedom. That's mean-spirited and irresponsible. So, and I always tell people, and I said, what the hell? It works. The masks work. We know it. And those people over there do it constantly without being told. It's just consideration for your fellow man. It's not that big a deal.
It feels like manufactured dissent, right? Like it feels like intentional misleading a certain part of the population. They know it's going to latch up onto this.
Yeah.
And so that then the people are arguing about what's right, what's wrong, as opposed to holding the leaders accountable.
Exactly.
Right? That's what it feels like.
And they're completely aware of people who will snatch onto this or that, and they're using it and manipulating people. And they just think of I think anyway that the big time capitalists see us as sheep and see us just as customers, and how can we get their money, and then even worse, you see what Trump is doing with these people. It's just horrible. He's inciting violence. It's going to get ugly either way after Election Day. I know it.
I'm with you on that. I hate to admit it, but I agree that there's very few scenarios in which where this unfolds in a peaceful way. And I think because they set the tone so high and so rough already.
It's awful.
Yeah. So I continue to try to find ways in which where we find commonality. I mean, it's the same thing. I think that's the thing that we've been doing anyway for most of our lives, George. Like folks like you and I, like most of our lives we spent like, hey man, let's not like be divisive. Let's find a way towards the center. You and I don't have to agree on everything, but we can work together and we can be civil.
And we can respect each other and try and figure out why the other person feels like that. I try to do that, but it's hard nowadays, because these people are condoning someone who's obviously a white supremacist. And I have a hard time with that. I understand people, okay, we disagree on policy, disagree about taxing, but okay, here's how to do it. These people want to do it this way. These people want to do it that way. It used to be you meet in the middle, like you say, and come up with legislation to accomplish what it is you want to accomplish. Nowadays, it's just all ugly. And this guy showed his hand right away and calling people names, mocking handicapped people. It just never stops. And how anyone can support that. And I have a lot of family members who do, and it pisses me off to no end, really. I mean, it's
Same.
like, how? You know, and they don't even recognize that. It's like, well, he does a lot of, it's just the way he is. He does a lot of good things. Well, what good things has he done? Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I'm going through the same thing. And I think most people are still going through this conversation with family. It's mostly aunts and uncles in my
But I got
realm.
cousins my age or a little older. I got an older
Yeah.
sister. She's quite a bit. I have two sisters. They're poles apart, and I'm always dragged into the middle of that. But anyway, it makes the world go around. I don't know if you saw the NPR documentary I think it's 2 nights ago about Walter Winchell. Do you know who he is?
No, I didn't see that.
Very influential New York journalist. And he really was kind of a showbiz hype, kind of short blurbs here and there. He got to be super powerful. And but anyway, in this documentary, it was concurrent with his thing was that the American Nazi Party in 1939 filled up the Madison Square Garden in New York, filled it, sold out. And there's a picture of George Washington. They did it on his birthday purposely.
Whoa.
American flags and swastikas everywhere.
What?
And they're such a, and I had to retweet this. I posted this article on NPR and said, can't happen here. It already has, 1939, and then all the info. And we were actually having, you know how Hitler Youth and all that stuff, we were having little Nazi camps for little kids.
Wow.
Even then, and a lot of big time, very famous Americans like Ford from Ford Automobile. He was a Hitler sympathizer. Lindbergh, the guy who's first solo guy, he was a Hitler guy.
Yeah.
So this is something that's always there and lurking beneath the surface. And I remember hearing Rod Serling from, I watched the old reruns of Twilight Zone sometime, and one of them was about that. And his little speech at the end of it inspired the first song on my new album called King or Your Despair, where there's always one of these guys waiting for the exact right moment to come in and screw everything up, you know, and take advantage of people who can't think for themselves and won't do just won't research anything. Anyway.
No, it's good to have insight into that first track too. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
It's really not inspiring, interesting to hear that, because I didn't know anything. But I'm gonna have to go back and look this guy up and look this NPR thing up, because
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, yes, do that, because it's I mean, I think it's been like obvious in a lot of ways that that when World War II ended, that thought process did not end. You know, we didn't squash that. And matter of fact, we actually tried to like kind of float on the coattails of it in a lot of ways. Technologically, we grabbed a bunch of their rocket scientists and pulled people that were in the high end that were around Hitler into the United States. And there's, then you got conspiracy theories abound around a lot of that stuff. Some of it probably true, because you never know.
We took their best scientists, and that's how we had a space program. I don't know if you've ever been to the Space Museum in what's the town in Alabama. It's fascinating, because you get to see they brought all those guys there. They said, you're either going to prison or you're going to help us develop a space program. And they opted for the second. And you can stand next to the exact first space capsules that we sent up.
Wow.
And it is chilling, because you see just exactly how brave those first astronauts were. Imagine getting in a trash can on top of a 15-story, because seriously, the things were this big. They could barely get in there.
Yeah.
No computers, no anything. You could see the panel where the switches were, and you could see where somebody just drilled through and then mounted switches from the back and hand wired everything. These guys, it's phenomenal. If it's, and gosh darn it, I can't think of the name of the town, but it's a great little town in Alabama, and the Space Museum, it's phenomenal. Yeah, if you ever get a chance. But yeah, those are all Nazis.
Yeah, what a crazy thing. I mean, well, so it's like it's a kind of a testament to some of the concept of good things coming from strange places sometimes, right? Like, so you have some progress and some things that come out of that, but you know, it was all that's fear based. All of it's fear based, and it's like, well, if we don't take those scientists, then the Russians will, or the
Exactly.
Chinese will, right? And then we're gonna not have the upper advantage.
Yeah, and it always comes down to this competition, space race. Why can't we just go to space? Why does it have to be some kind of an unhealthy competition? It doesn't make sense, but that's what
Yeah. Well,
humans do, right?
yeah, and I see this very clearly, like the misunderstanding about each other, about other cultures and other colors of human beings throughout the ages, far before these world wars, that, you know, a lot of this same type of methodology was happening. Oh, they don't look like us. They don't believe like what we believe. They're the heathens. So let's go learn them something and take them out if we have to. And it's like really not ever stopped. Like, even though we've kind of masqueraded as this kind of, you know, civilized society, it's only through the lens of like us having to have enough military might,
Exactly.
not through actual negotiation, not through actually building something together, because, you know, what could we do if we were united actually, you know?
Real. Yeah.
Anything, whatever we wanted, but that's the answer. You know,
We
could
have
do
the
it all.
resources. We have the resources to do anything, and we choose to do the bad things mostly.
No worries.
It's for you, Chris.
Hello, Mr. President. Yes, you should just drop out. That's exactly what you should do, sir.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We could be living in Eden. You know, with the resources we have, everybody could have whatever they needed, food-wise, health-wise, education-wise, and you know, everybody's we're going to run the deficit up. How come whenever anybody wants to invade anybody, there's never any talk about cost? It's like we send people, you know, we've been using Afghanistan as a chessboard for, you know, 30, 40 years now, 50 years. It's nuts.
But when it comes to education and healthcare for our own, I don't know, man, it's too expensive. Nobody wants to do that. And the big pharma is in the way of a lot of that happening.
Exactly.
Especially on the healthcare side. And the education side, you know as well as I do, an educated population is one that actually is able to innovate and actually free themselves, you know.
And ain't gonna vote for these clowns either.
Yeah, they won't vote for these people back into office year after year out of desperation or exhaustion. They're going to an educated and healthy population that understands the benefits of a daily exercise and healthy eating and all these things, and, you know, and play. Like, I think that's a little thing gets lost in a lot of our modern society is the recreation, and true recreation, not like super organized recreation all the time. It's just like allowing a person to have time and space in a day where it doesn't have to be anything, and you don't have to do something to be, you don't have to do these things. You don't always have to be like productive, right? You can do stuff that's totally non-productive.
Yeah, animals. Look, if we watch animals, you know, even the scariest of animals, they just lay around a lot when they're not hungry.
Yeah.
You know, lions. I mean, I've seen documentaries where guys, they know the habits of lions. They walk right through crowds of lions at the right time of day and they don't get hurt. Why do we always have to be ambitious and going after it? You're right. And when you look at, you know, the Scandinavian countries, they got it. Those people take care of themselves. They have really long vacation time. If you're having a baby, you have a ton of time off. I remember going to Finland the first time, and hearing that if you hit your baby in public, the police will immediately throw you in jail.
Whoa.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Please don't hit babies.
No, because that stuff gets passed on. That, you
Yeah.
know, if your old man beat the crap out of you and you're a kid, more than likely you're going to beat the crap out of your kid. It's true. It's proven. So those people, and people always squawk about, well, we can't have that, socialize this, socialize that. I ran numbers between the UK and what they pay in taxes and what we pay in taxes. If you take an equal salary, this guy in America, this guy in England, they both make the equivalent of around $100,000. Both guys are paying the equivalent of around 27, 28%.
Mm.
They get free health care. They get 4 years of university for their kids. We get squat for that.
Mm.
And it's for life. So it's just nonsense. People who say that stuff don't know. They've never done the research. They've never traveled. Mark Twain said it, travel is the biggest enemy to ignorance there is on earth. And, you know, we're far away from everything. And we're such a big country that we figured travel was just driving to the next state, you know, but if you can I'm fortunate enough because I've been paid to travel all my life.
Sure.
I certainly couldn't afford to do that if I wasn't a guitar player. So,
right.
But it really helps. There's so many myths, you know. You don't like socialism. Well, who do you call when somebody's breaking in your house? Police department. Is that for profit? No, it's a government. Fire department. You're going to call them if your house is on fire, or you're going to get some estimates.
Right.
You know, call the fire department. Socialism. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, it's been that thing where you know, looking at the Scandinavian, you know, they take, I think, minimum 4 weeks, but a lot of them get 5 or 6 weeks off. Like every job knows that they need a significant amount of time off, multiple vacations per year to reset and be as productive at the top of their game as possible. Whereas here, we're trying to grind you into salt. Like if you, I mean, that's like I've had the $100,000+ a year gig, and I advocated for myself and said, hey, I got to have at least 4 weeks. And they're like, no, we'll give you some other perks, but 3 weeks is tops. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you want me to be director, you want me to be here, but yet you don't really want me to be able to refuel and take care of myself, because that's what you're telling me. You want me to burn it at both ends. And then you're going to chastise me when I can't come in, or I get sick, or
Yeah, it's crazy. People fight against their own. They vote against, and they make decisions that are not conducive to what they're trying to get, you know, and just think it through. You know, take care of your employees, let them enjoy happy lives, and they'll produce. It's just not that difficult, I don't think.
I think at a simple way of looking at it would be that most of us have been taught that if you want something in life, you've got to cling and hold on to, and you've got to grind, you've got to work really hard and
fight for it,
and it's got to be you got to knock people down and make your way to the top.
That ain't happiness.
Oh man, there's nothing happy about that.
No.
There's what you know, and so the unlearning of that has to take place somewhere along the line, and the concept of the open hand carries the most sand needs to be, you know, introduced more often, saying, look, man, you the more you grasp at that sand, the more it comes through your fingers, and that's your life. That's your time on the planet. That's how many heartbeats, how many breaths you get. It's going to slip through your hands the more you're clenching it, because you might make it to the top. As the song says, you might get the money, you might get the power, right? But keep your eyes on the final hour, that kind of, you know, Lauryn Hill like thing. But because you know, what are you looking to achieve in this lifetime? And once you get all that, and I think that's one of the interesting things is that people that have made it, oftentimes I hear them say, man, I hope, like I think Jim Carrey said, it's like, I hope you all get rich. I hope you all get rich and famous so you understand that it's not the answer.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
Know?
You got food on the table and living indoors, that's a
winning.
good choice.
Yeah.
It's just happiness, you know. I don't think it's that difficult. People make it worse. People make life so difficult for absolutely no reason at all. And it gets back to, again, like we were saying, what your childhood was like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
who were your models? Who modeled what for you? And how much of that are you actually consciously aware of, and how much of it is subconsciously just at work, is part of your operating system,
right.
and needs to be maybe have a light shined on it so that you can maybe undo and step back from a few of those ways of being.
Yeah.
Difficult work, man. Difficult work. I think that's probably why we don't see more of it,
And it's just an awareness thing. People that, I think about my family members and they don't, it's just like my old man. My mom always taught us, look, your dad, he's a great guy, he's a hard worker, but he has some notions. Don't pay attention to those things. And she always said, nobody's better than you and you're no better than anybody else. We're all, God put us here, all, she was a devout Catholic, and she she didn't talk about it. She helped people who hated her. All she did, she was as Christian as a person I've ever seen in life. And I'm not a religious guy at all. But I have spiritual beliefs. I know that's cliche, but my dad, who was really a good guy, he had all these absurd notions that, because he wasn't the brightest bulb and he didn't have an education, he didn't read. So he just believed everything that people told him. And he would repeat things about ethnic groups. He didn't dislike them, but he subscribed to all these crazy things that you would hear about people. And some of it was pretty funny. He seemed to think that all Mexicans were born with the innate ability to paint cars.
Sorry, that's hilarious.
I know, isn't it great? And I say, Dad, what are you talking about? And he went to Earl Scheib to have his car painted, and all the guys working there were Mexican. I said, but that's not
what?
It's just coincidence, because it's a low-paying job, and they're immigrants. It's got, sure, they work at the car wash. They don't wash cars any better than anyone else. But it's a funny thing, and you deal with this ignorance, and hopefully I could see through it. And my mom helped us see through it with my dad, and he worked his tail off and really taught us about work and ethics, and just hard work and what you get out of it. And he was a funny dude and had a lot of fun. So, between the two of them, it was a good yin and yang balance that we learned from.
So you were raised kind of in a Christian or a Catholic environment? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, Italian Catholic in New York, Staten Island.
Oh, okay.
Everybody in the neighborhood, all the Irish guys were Catholic. We were Catholic. And it was just an incredible mix of ethnic within blocks of where I lived. I could walk down our street and hear Latin music, salsa music. There were Black people living doors away, a lot of Italians, a lot of Irish, you name it. And it was, it was an interesting way to grow up. And I got to interact with different people and hear great music. And my elder sisters always were listening to pretty cool music. And my mom and dad did too. They listened to a lot of big band and swing stuff. So it all sort of was forced in. And
was there any other musicians that inspired you in the family, or was that outside of the family to get you into playing music?
No, I didn't. There weren't any musicians in the family.
Who sparked your interest?
Huh?
Who sparked the interest for you?
It's hard to say. Like I say, there was always music on in the house. So whatever I was hearing, whether it was, as a little kid, my older sisters were listening to Barry, but they were also listening to Afro-Cuban music. And then my mom and dad were listening to swing and Sinatra and Tony Bennett. And so, yeah, it was cool. But I didn't play even, but we moved to California. I didn't even get a guitar till I was 15. So I was kind of a late bloomer. It wasn't like I was sitting around playing music then. It was just being, I guess, planting seeds at that point.
Do you remember what that first guitar was that you got?
The first guitar, because my folks didn't have any dough. We're pretty poor, right? So my mom, nobody even knows what these things are anymore, but trading stamps. They would give you these stamps that you'd put in a book when you went shopping. If you spend $20, you get X amount of these stamps. You fill a book up and they would have a catalog. Okay, with X amount of books, you could get this, that, or the other thing. Mostly clothes, mostly stuff for the house and the kitchen. But they had as they called it, a Spanish guitar, an acoustic guitar. The neck was here and the strings were like in another time zone. And that was my first guitar. And I was thrilled that my mom, went out of her way to get me that. And it was excruciating, but I had nothing to compare it to. So I didn't know that, but I wanted to play so bad. I started on drums. We lived in a small apartment. And they said, you're not getting a set of drums. Forget that. And I was already playing drums, so at my friend's house. So I went with the guitar, and that's, for the next, I don't know how many years, that's all I did. I'd come home from school and play that guitar and bleeding. And then my cousin, who was still on Staten Island, my uncle actually did this, but his son had a nice Dan Electro guitar and amp that were virtually brand new because he had it and then lost interest the next week. So they sent that to me. That was a pretty cool guitar.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first, what your first couple experiences were like getting a guitar pick? Did you play mostly with your hands in the beginning, or did somebody hand you a guitar pick or something along the way?
Always a pick. Never, I'm trying to think if probably when I got that first acoustic, no name acoustic, I think it included, in those days for beginning guitars, they include all kinds of little junk.
Sure.
And they had to have had a pick or two in there. And then by then, this was in California in Alhambra. And then as I got further along, me and my friends are always going after school to the music store just to stare at guitars, and play them if they let us. And I'm trying to think, but it was always basically just a regular plastic pick. And then there were probably some in that Dan Electro case when I got that.
And do you remember when this triangle metal pick came into your life, and when that aha moment? Look at that, baby.
Yeah, these things last forever. I think it was. I want to say it was in the 80s, and these are not thick and not super thin, but they give. But what I really like, let me see if I can get this up close there without.
Yeah.
What I really like is the angle of the tip, and it's symmetrical.
Sure.
And the fact that they don't break, they don't go away. I don't know. I'm just so comfortable. They're just the right size for me. Completely worthless on an acoustic instrument because seriously, I've deadened a G string by the end of a song in a recording session. Try this on bronze strings, and by the end of the song, at least one of the strings are completely dead where no sound comes out. Why it doesn't do that on electric steel strings, I don't know. So I always have to have both in my pocket.
Maybe it's a chemical reaction or something with the steel on steel or metal.
I don't know, but they're also good for, picking your nails and stuff.
Oh yeah. So did you find that? Did you happen upon that pick like in one of the store finds, or did somebody play it and then give it to you, or?
I honestly don't remember exactly, but I believe I got it at a music store near Redondo Beach that is no longer there. I'm pretty sure. And then whenever I would find some, I would buy a bag of them. They do last forever, but there had to be at least a 10-year period where I couldn't find them. And I was starting to panic a little. And then we were playing in, I don't remember if this was with Bonnie or if I was still with Bruce Hornsby, but we were playing in Reno, Nevada. There, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a really cool store there. And I happened to go in and I say, hey, because I would always, at whatever store I went in, you don't have any of these, do you? And the guy said, yeah, right there. And there was a bag of them, and I bought them all, and that kept me going another 10 years. So
it probably until I sent you the next bag, right?
That's exactly right. And I think that's exactly right. Yeah, you were my savior because who makes them anyway? I don't even remember.
This is made by Dunlop.
Oh, okay. So if I need more, I can.
Yeah.
Chris, help.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll make sure Jimmy finds some for you. I mean,
I'm okay now. I still have some unopened bags.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I tried to set you up, man, because like anybody that plays something that unique, it can be a weird thing, right? Like you're in some other country and maybe the bag didn't make it, and you're like, wait.
Exactly.
You should have bags stashed in every possible thing so that you always have those picks, you know?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And most of the time that our guitar techs would have some stashed away in there, those tool crates they have or whatever they are. Yeah, they would always hide some for me. And because I would show up, sometimes I'd show up at a gig and forget to switch stuff from one pair of pants to another pair of pants. It's like, oh no.
All my stuff is gone.
Yeah. Do you have any picks? Okay.
See, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like? Because you were a founding member of Bruce Hornsby's band, right? And like, where'd you meet Bruce and how'd that come about?
Let's see. I was playing in a band with the drummer, John Molo. And he said, hey, I got this pal from Virginia also. They're both from Virginia, went to college together. And he said, he writes really good songs, man. You should, and I forget exactly what happened, but then at that point, Bruce hired me to do some session work. This was in LA, and yeah, I was doing a lot of session work even then in LA. And so I did this session, and Joe Puerto was on bass. Joe Puerto is the bass player from Ambrosia, who eventually became the bass player in The Range. So Bruce and I hit it off. And one day he just said, he called and said, hey, man, you want to start a band? And I said, well, yeah, sure. Why not? I'm in 5 others right now anyway. So, I mean, seriously, I was in 4 or 5 other bands at the time. You know how you play with different people. And
sure,
I was doing session work during the day and playing clubs at night. And so we did. And that's how that happened. And Joe became a bass player, and John was a drummer, and a guy named David Mansfield. I'm not sure if you're aware of who he is, but he played with Dylan. He was in that, he was in some movie, but he did a lot of movie scoring.
Okay.
And he really talented guy, played guitar and mandolin and fiddle. You have to do this when you say fiddle. You can't just say it. You have to.
Got to.
So anyway, and I'm still friends with all of those guys. But at that point, when the first album finally came out, David said, I can't tour. And we all said, what do you mean you can't tour? Well, I'm committed to do this movie for Heaven's Gate, it was called. He scored that movie, and I've never seen it, but he's apparently has a kind of an iconic scene in there where he's on roller skates playing his fiddle. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not.
No, I don't know.
And it's Michael Camino. So he had already done 1 or 2 movies for Michael. So when it came time for us to start touring, he didn't do it. And the downside of that is it forced me to learn how to play mandolin. That's the only reason I ever played mandolin, is because David bailed. He was the one who played mandolin on Mandolin Rain, so he's a great mandolin player, and I'm not a great mandolin player. So,
but you get it done.
Yeah, if I have time to sit down and work out stuff, I can learn it. Whereas, he plays mandolin like he plays a guitar or a fiddle. He just plays it,
Now it's a pretty long stint with Bruce, right? Like,
yeah, I think I met him in 82. It might have been when we put the band together right around 82, and then I quit in 91. I think it was 8 solid years. I may be getting these dates a little bit off, but
it's a good run.
Yeah, 3 albums, but toured the world a zillion times. And
those are, like the primary records that he's known for, right? I think he did some good records past that, but
yeah, those were easily the most successful. The first couple sold. I think the first album sold 3.2 million, and the second one was 2.5.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty huge. It was kind of fun and new, having that kind of hit records and people buying them.
Was there full world tours during that time?
Yeah, we would go out forever. And at the beginning, we were an opening act. We opened for, Huey Lewis and the News in Europe and in the States. We did some stuff opening for John Fogerty. We did some stuff opening for Steve Winwood, which I'm such a huge Steve Winwood fan.
Dude, he's so awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
That voice.
Yeah. Agreed.
I would give all of these fingers for that voice right now. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So we were opening act for, and then after that, we just, well, after that, we became headliners, had some opening acts like Crowded House. First time they ever played America, they opened for us. And a couple of other bands. And then we just would do an evening with, and we'd go out and play 3-4+ hours a night.
Wow. That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's I say. Yeah, it was exhausting.
So you know, a lot of guys get lucky just to be in one really good, huge group and do something like that. But you then, I'd love to hear how you transitioned or how you met Bonnie and that band and ended up doing that gig.
Let's see. Well, all those times since I was even in my early 20s, I was always doing session work, playing on other people's records or demos or whatever. So I always had that in the background, and I'm still surprised sometimes I find credits or I get checks in the mail. But what? Oh, I played on that. Okay, right. So, so what happened was I left Bruce's band because there were just some business things that I couldn't hang with. And like we were talking about happiness, it's like, well, stress is something I try to keep on the back burner. I know it's always going to be there, but I don't want it out front. So I just got to the point where I couldn't, you know, and I wanted us all to remain friends, and we still are. And I called Bruce and said, you know, I think I'm done now, and I want to retain our friendship. So the next morning I called Hutch and I said, hey, Hutch, tell Bonnie I want to be in her band. It was that simple. I didn't think it was going to happen, but I'd seen him a few times, and you know, obviously I'd crossed paths with Bonnie in LA. I'd never played with her. And Hutch said, oh man, she just hired a guitar player. And so it took the whole cycle of that next record and world touring or whatever it was. And then, so a couple of years later, I think it was a year and a half later, Bruce calls and says, did Bonnie call you yet? I said, no, what are you talking about? Because at that point I didn't, you know, and he said, well, she's going to call you and ask you if you want to do some playing. I said, oh, great. And so meantime, I was gigging around and doing a little bit of road work with some other people. And Bonnie called and said, hey, would you come out and audition and for the next record? I said, well, and she gave me the dates. I said, look, I can't stiff these people. I can't bail when they've booked airplane tickets and everything. I have to do these gigs. That's just not fair for me to do that. And I said, and I'm not real keen on auditioning with anybody. I've only done 2 in my life, and I got 1. So and she knew who I was, and she was a big fan of Bruce Hornsby and the Range. Hutch said she would always have the CDs on the bus. So
that's cool.
So she just said, oh, okay, just come out and play on the record. So I did, and that's how I ended up in the band. That was in 1993, and then the first tour we did was early 94. We went to Europe. We didn't play the States right away. We went to Europe. And so that's kind of how that happened.
What album was that you jumped in on?
Longing in Their Hearts.
Longing in Their Hearts.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Love Sneaking Up on You might be the big hit off that one. I think. I don't know. I can't keep all this stuff straight.
And you've been pretty much on every record since up until this last couple, yeah?
There was one in 98. She didn't use the band.
Okay.
It's called Fundamental.
Got it.
And at that point also, I sort of took a break and missed that tour. I just said, you know what? I'm deeply entrenched in session work, and I'm producing records at the house and doing sessions here in Nashville. And I just don't think I can go on a tour right now. It just wasn't ready. So from 98 to 2000, I wasn't, technically I wasn't in the band. Wasn't touring. And then, so she got Rick Vito, who had played with her before. And Rick's, you know who he is.
Yeah, he's great.
Monster.
Yeah.
And then Rick called me and he said, "Hey man, Y2K is coming up. I don't want to travel. Would you do the gig?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do the gig. I know some of those songs." And then I ended up back in the band again somehow. I'm not even sure how.
Wow.
And so that was 2000. Yeah.
And now, and here we are 20 years later.
20 years later. Yeah.
And I mean, you made kind of a soft exit from the band just in the last year or so, right? Like, I mean, it was just.
Yeah. And the thing is, everything's not happening anyway. I mean,
Right.
every tour on the planet came to a grinding halt at the end of last year, whatever it was, the beginning of this year. What am I saying? What year is this? 2020?
Not sure.
Anyway, yeah. So I was sort of, pulling back from not wanting to do that much road work anymore. So, but you know what? The door is never closed for me, and I'm actually going to. I spoke to Bonnie just the other night, and she's got a musical idea she's running by me, and I'm going to try and go down to the studio in the next couple of days and, put together her ideas and see if I can map it out and write something or whatever. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
That's great. I love that. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Man, what a cool legacy for you. I mean, like you have, and this is the thing too. I've been so fortunate to see you with Bonnie. I think about between 6 or 7 times now, like through the years.
That's a bunch. Yeah,
last 10 years or something.
There. Yeah.
And which, it's kind of rare unless you're like a total like, crazed fan. People rarely have the opportunity to see somebody that they love so much that many times, and get to see the stage show and get to see how the band interacts and the way that she seems to treat you guys and like the love that she obviously wears on her sleeve for everybody, and the way that she looks to you to take over and on these great lead guitar parts and back her up on vocals and stuff. It's amazing to watch, man.
It's as much of a band experience as I've had anywhere. I mean, she doesn't look at it, like so many artists where the singer's at the front of the stage, and maybe if you have binoculars, you can see the band guys, and they may not even be visible. It's always been a band, and even right from the get back when I first started playing with her, and it's grown into more of that. We're more and more input over the years, and we've written a bunch of songs together, and she's always so generous about, like you say, she's not trying to hog the spotlight or anything like that.
Very, very much a humanitarian, seems like.
Very, very generous person, does all kinds of charitable work. And right now she's raising money by doing a lot of virtual stuff and duets with Boz Scaggs and with people like that to raise money for candidates all across the country in the elections, raising a lot of money.
She's amazing.
Which is great. Yeah, I know. I didn't even know she was doing it. I hadn't actually spoken to her in a couple of months. We would text about goofy stuff and email, send dog videos, things like that. But speaking of which, where is Maisie the dog?
Yeah, where is that Maisie?
Maisie! Let me see if she...
Yeah.
Maybe outside. Maisie! Or she might be asleep. Yeah, if she comes up, she's now at 85 pounds. She just turned a year.
Oh my gosh, 85.
And the vet says she could get to 100. We had no idea that there are 2 types of Dobermans. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no.
There's American Dobermans, which are smaller, and these, we found out the day we picked her up that she's a European Doberman.
Oh, so she's the big one.
The giant economy size. Yeah, Maisie!
That's funny. My little Kimsey came through here a couple times. She's nudging me. She's only 62 pounds or something, boxer pit mix. Yeah, which I thought, that's like a relatively big dog for most people, But then, you get a dog that's above 70 pounds, and you've got a tank. You really got a tank.
And when they play or they run full speed into the front of your knees,
She has taken me out a couple of times playing with another dog in the backyard at my buddy's house.
Right.
I was sit there talking to him about something, blah, blah, blah. And these two dogs are like wrestling, rah, 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 rah. And I wasn't paying attention. And they just wrestled right into the back of my knees and just dropped me, took my back to the ground.
Sure.
Thankfully, there was nothing, that my head could slam on, or it was just grass, but like winded me. And I was like, okay, I have to be way more careful about my surroundings, especially when these dogs are going nuts, because there's two of them that
I'm having rotator cuff issues because I would take her for a walk, and the bigger she got, apparently I was doing something wrong. We've hired a trainer to train us to work with her, and she's made 2 visits, and I was doing the exact wrong thing. But when we would go for a walk, the leash would always be full, no tension. I mean, completely tense, no slack. And I swear in her head, she's a sled dog. I mean, she turns, all she does is pull, and she turned into a mountain lion as soon as we go off our driveway. So I'm now having rotator cuff issues, and it really hurts. And then the other day, I learned this trick where you put like a 30-foot rope on the end of their leash, and I take her out in the front. She can run and then I just barely, she stops and comes back. And that's how kind of the stuff we're teaching her. But I wasn't looking. Apparently she saw a chipmunk full speed, and I swear it felt like my shoulder got dislocated.
Got pulled out of socket and then
back. God. And our previous dog, I probably had told you about this when we were having breakfast up in was it Corte Madera? And
Marin.
Your pup was in there, and your pup was in Mill Valley, whatever it was.
Mill Valley, that's what it was.
But your doggy was in the car, and I couldn't believe how well behaved. But we had a 125-pound. He was part Saint Bernard and part boxer, and our last backyard was a bit of a hill, and he would come running down. It sounded like buffalo, and he would run into your knee. If it didn't happen much, because he was a very gentle dog, but he was kind of big and clumsy. And a couple of times he did that. It's like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. They're big, but I like big dogs. I've always liked
big dogs. Yeah. Me too. I like
little cup dogs, lap squeakers.
Yeah, my mom's got a couple of them. They're always yapping, and I'm just like, oh man, you need to train your dogs. And it's like, no, that's just what they do. And I'm like, okay, sure. Like
that's what they say about the president. That's what he does.
Oh, right. And that guy needs to be leash trained. Period. He was never leash trained.
With a muzzle.
With a muzzle. Yeah.
Apparently he's going to have a muzzle tonight,
Oh, they got a mute button, right? Is that what the deal is?
How hard was that?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I hope for the best.
I hear her. No wonder she didn't come up. She's outdoors.
Oh, she's playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Like this, I don't mean to be lackadaisical about the thing, but I can't watch. I'll watch the highlights of the debate, but I can't sit for the actuality of it because my blood just starts to boil, and I don't even, obviously I don't want to hear him talk. I don't want to see his face, and
it's just ugly. I hate to say anybody is ugly, but he is ugly inside. I'm not talking about his features, but everything he says, everything he does, it's ugly. And beyond that, there's a football game on tonight.
Yeah, that's way cooler. Yeah.
I gotta watch football. I know we'll see over and over replays of both, to tell you the truth. So
right, yeah, it's true. Well, I'm curious, what do you? Since you're kind of finished with the album now, right? So this is all mixed and mastered, the version that I have, correct?
Yeah, it is. That's complete.
Great. And so and you've had that done for a little while. I'm curious, like, what you've been listening to, or what is it? Have you been listening to anything interesting lately that you might share with us? Like,
I mean, since or anytime?
Yeah, anytime since. But like, kind of, what's your most lately? What's the stuff you're listening to lately?
I listen to stuff. Sometimes I don't even know who it is. I discovered this really neat app for smart TVs. It's called My Tuner, and it you can go on there, and on the left side, you can scroll through every country on Earth. You hit that country, and over here is every radio station. I think it's internet radio.
Whoa.
So you can pick up like Ghana, for instance, and there might be a choice of 50 to 100 stations. So I go in there and audition, and if something I like, you favorite it. So I got all these stations from all around the world. A lot of it's Brazilian stuff. I love Brazilian music, African stuff, reggae music, some great. Yeah. The downside is they don't tell you who you're listening to.
Oh, and you can't. If they even announce it, you probably don't know the language, so
they don't announce it.
Oh, wow.
They don't announce it, or maybe a couple of the ones where they're speaking in some Swahili or something. I don't know, but it's a great resource for music everywhere. And I've always been saying this. It's like, if you just listen to American music or English music, you're really shortchanging yourself, because there's so many beautiful rhythms, chord changes, and melodies that never get used. It's only 12 notes, but these people on the other side of the planet, it doesn't sound like those 12 notes that we use.
That's right.
So it's really fascinating. And I've always, Hutch turned me on to a lot of that when I joined Bonnie's band, a lot of world music and stuff like that. And that was pre-internet radio. So I said, man, how'd you find out about it? He says, go to a record store and buy a compilation. Buy compilation records of certain types of music. And I discovered more music, and there you can read it. But also, I started a Bandcamp account, because that's where my record is going to be being sold. Okay, cool. And I'm going to donate every penny to, I believe it's going to be Habitat for Humanity. I'm not exactly sure.
That's wonderful.
It could be the Humane Society, because I like animals and people.
Both great options.
Yeah, so it's going to be one of those. And I just figured that's some way I've been fortunate. I'm going to give something back. So my last year's work will hopefully raise a few bucks for somebody good. And so I've been finding some cool stuff on Bandcamp. I don't remember who, but they're in my list.
No, but it's great. The way that the method to find new music often is something that people kind of lack an understanding around. If you're not already a music file and you don't kind of stay up with like the different avenues under which you can find it, right. It can feel a little bit tough to find like good stuff. And it's interesting that you found this app on your smart TV, because there's this other app that I've spoke about before on the podcast, but I'm absolutely in love with, and you might try this one out. And it's you can get it on your phone or on your iPad or whatever. It's called Radio, and it has like multiple O's.
I got it.
You got it. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah,
and you can pick the decade. That's what.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so glad you have it. No wonder. Yeah, it's so much fun. You can go to the 1980s Russia. You could go, 1940s here. Right. Yeah. Oh man, so cool.
And I love the era of Brazilian music of the 60s and 70s. So that's handy and they at least tell you who you're listening to.
Well, I was gonna say is like the cool thing about it is you can choose. Obviously, you can choose if you want it to be kind of like mellow, or if you want it to be upbeat, or something else, right? And they tell you, and you can usually go look it up. Not everything I have liked or has been on Spotify, or I've had to kind of look on some other sites to find some of the stuff. But you said 60s and 70s Brazil. Is that what is your favorite?
Are you in there right now?
I'm just going to write it down so that I turn it on after we get off the pod.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you were queue up something. No, oh, here she is.
Oh, doggo.
Come here. Say hi, Chris. Say hi, Chris. Come on. It's okay. It's okay. Say hi, Chris.
Oh, hi, Maisie. See? Oh, you're pretty.
It was a good girl. It was a good girl.
Yes, she is.
You going to sleep? Okay. Well, you're back.
Aw.
We always teach her not to jump. So when I try to get her,
then she's like, "You told me not to. What are you trying to make me do?
Make up your mind, Dad."
Don't
Hello.
get me into trouble.
Okay, now you want to come on? Okay, come on.
It's all right. Aw.
You're whacked. She chewed up my socks this morning.
Oh, she's a chewer?
Not that much, but if for some reason, if the socks are in reach, she likes socks.
Yeah, my girl needs projects, man. Thankfully she doesn't go after my stuff, but she's always asking for some sort of chewy project so that she can go out in the yard. Usually it's like I get her these no hide toys, or not toys, but no hide bars that take
Chewy guys, yeah.
yeah, chewy things, and it takes 30 minutes sometimes to get through one, so it's kind of buys you some time when they're out there exercising.
You know what's
Like,
good? The pet shop down the street sells these deer antlers.
oh
They're
yeah,
very expensive, but they last forever. I mean,
Okay.
not forever, but months and months, as opposed
Long
to a half an hour, because she can go through stuff quick too.
yeah. I've gotten some antler stuff before. I haven't got the deer antler before, but I also started getting what is it? It's yak cheese. These little chunks of yak cheese. It's hard, right? But it's like, yeah, you can get
They
a
make
long.
cheese from yak milk? Are you
Yeah,
serious?
yeah, for real, man.
Where are yaks? Are they, up
No
in
idea. No
Eastern
idea.
Europe, up near the pole or something?
Possibly. I don't know. But some yak farmer, is like making a killing now because the Western world buys a bunch of yak cheese. Like,
That's
they're cheap too. They're about $2.99 for a little chunk like that, and then like maybe $6 for double that. And it does take them a while to like nibble on it. But it gives it gives a little bit more than an antler. So like it gives them a little bit more success rate. Because
sure.
I notice if she doesn't get very far with something, she'll give up, and then it's not
Now,
as
is this yak cheese only for dogs?
yeah, I think so. I mean,
Oh, okay.
it's sold in the dog store, so I've never tried it myself,
I
but
won't grate it and put it on my pasta.
nah, no, but it looks like a hard like Parmesan. It looks
Oh,
yeah, it looks
really?
like something you could grate. I haven't interneted it. I don't know if it's if it's human grade consumption
That's so great.
or
That's
not,
so
but
great. Wow.
yeah. But yeah, it's like it's the dogs. The dog has kept me sane-ish, through a lot of this because I'm mostly by myself. I moved out of LA earlier this year. I'm back up in Northern California. I'm in Chico, California.
I didn't know you left Northern California. When did you move to LA?
Well, see, that's the interesting thing is that I had been in Santa Rosa and the North Bay area for Dunlop for quite a few years, close to like 8 or 9 years, and for EMG and then Dunlop, and then May of last year, or it was February of last year that I kind of ramped down. Told Dunlop, I was like, man, it's been a great 5 years, but I need to like not work as much. I need to like explore my own project. I want to do this podcast, and I want to be teaching yoga more because those things, those are the things that like make my life feel more interesting and connected, and I don't want to work. So I went to work for Kiesel Guitars out of Escondido, which is the old Carvin, so
Oh, it is?
yeah, so Carvin turned into Kiesel. Kiesel is the family name.
Now, was there ever a gap in there where nothing was happening between? I mean, did Carvin go completely away, or they just changed the name?
They just swapped the name. It was really it was never a lull, really. What it was is Carvin was going, and they had the electronics division and they had the guitar division, right? And one father and son were running the electronics, another father and son running the guitars. And they kind of had a few disagreements along the way because electronics weren't kind of keeping up with the sales of the guitars.
Was it kind of studio gear they were, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, kind of entry level PA gear, some guitar amps. They made guitar amps for Steve Vai for many years.
Oh, I remember they did some nice amps.
Yeah, there were some good amps for sure. But in I think 5-6 years ago it's been now is when the switch about happened. I think they just had a disagreement, and the electronics side of the family said, oh, well, we want to split off and do our own thing. And the guitar side said, Jeff and his dad said, yeah, okay, fine, we'll do it. And so they split, and they decided, well, this is an opportunity. Let's shift up market instead of continuing to try to stay in the lower end of the market and compete doing USA made $800 guitars. Let's actually make those USA made guitars really, really nice and still have a really good price in comparison to other USA made guitars.
Right.
So because they've been trying to compete with like the import stuff, but with American labor, and it was really tough juggle there.
I'll bet that import stuff it's pretty good and it's pretty cheap.
That's right. It's like Korea makes really great guitars. I mean, Japan's made really great guitars for a long time. Korea and Mexico, though, have been doing a really good job, and even some stuff out of Indonesia has really
Oh, really?
come up. Yeah, it's really come up considering what it used to be. And so they went up market with the whole company, and they've been, and as they switched over, Jeff, the son of the guitar side of things, who's now the VP and the primary guy that runs that company.
Mm-hmm.
He and I became good friends at NAMM. I kept trying to put EMG pickups in his guitars, and he's like, no, we make our own pickups. I'm like, oh, that's fine, man. But then we became really good friends and started having dinner together and stuff. And he's like, he saw me playing ESP guitars, and he was like, hey, man, why don't I just make you a couple of guitars so that you're not using other people's stuff. Let's be friends. And I was like, okay, yeah. And as soon as I had a couple of his custom guitars, I was like, oh, this is the difference. Now I get it. I've never had a guitar made for me that was like the specs that I wanted and all that stuff, the right thickness of the neck and the radius. And so he's like, well, hey, I'll make you more guitars if you send a couple artists our way every once in a while. And I said, oh, that's easy. Cool. So I had been doing that for a few years before Dunlop and I, kind of came to a resting. Well, we're still working together, but
are you?
I'm just not working full time. I'm not there being the director and all that, right?
Right.
So,
right.
I still help him out because I run a guitar pick podcast and like I still work with all the same artists. So, but he was like, yeah, why don't you come over? You can, it'd be ideal if you wanted to work in LA because their shop is in Escondido, like San Diego area.
And I was going to say, I know where Escondido is, but I can't remember because it's been so long since I lived in LA now. But yeah, sure. Okay.
Kind of north and a little east of San Diego. And, but it's real close, like 20 minutes or whatever. And so I said, well, you know what? I've never lived in LA. I've always kind of talked shit about living in LA because I'm a Northern California boy and I'm really happy with like the North State.
And but it's a different thing down there.
Oh, way different.
Different.
I've been working down there for 10, 15 years through just going down for trips all the time, but never actually living there. So, well, look, it's the thing that I'm kind of like scared to do a little bit hesitant to do. So it's probably a thing I should probably do.
It's good to sometimes get yourself out of the little. So whereabouts did you live? Did you live in Escondido?
No, I lived in Hollywood. I lived in East Hollywood. I was in the thick of it. So I was on.
Tell me you commuted every day.
No. I work from home. I was remote. So I would go down to Escondido, every other month and I would take artists down there and
That's no sweat. Okay. I thought you were talking about that drive every day. That would
no.
You'd be in your car 6 hours a day.
No, and see, that was the thing that I was getting away from because with Dunlop, I lived in Santa Rosa and commuted to Benicia. So it was an hour and a half one way. I was driving 65 miles. Oh, as much as it was a blessing and I'll always love my Dunlop family, that ground on me pretty hard. So,
hey, do you still have the VW?
No, I finally shifted away. I had left VW. It's like I think I had 6 different VWs over the years, and then I'm a Subaru guy now.
They're great.
Yeah, it's easy, and I bought one, a used one, and I just own it outright. I'm not making payments.
That's the way to go. Which model did you get? A Forester, or do you have an Impreza?
I got the Outback actually.
Oh, you got the Outback, yeah.
Yeah, I got the Outback. It's a 2011, and it's so easy. I got it rebuilt and everything. Everything is like easy on it. It's not really that expensive to maintain.
No, they're great cars, man. They all have all-wheel drive. We're thinking about maybe what is it, the Crosstrek or something like that. Just something little. Because we have an all-wheel drive Toyota minivan.
Oh, cool.
Which is but we like having that. But we had a Subaru. We had an Impreza, the 5-door Impreza. Which they then made into the Crosstrek by putting fancier wheels and jacking it up 3 inches. It's the same car.
Right.
But they're great. They're great.
It suits me here in NorCal because I'm in Chico, which like we've got lots of bike trails and I can get out of town really easily. That's the thing I love about living here actually. Because I'm from this area, but I haven't lived here. It's really weird, George, is that I left here in the second week of May 2000. I left here and drove to Seattle, and that's when I left Chico, left this area. Was like, I'm not going to be here, and I came back 20 years to the week, second week of May. I didn't plan that at all, but COVID hit and all these things, and I started feeling like my guts were like man, maybe you should get out of LA. I mean, you just came down here just to check it out anyway.
Yeah, I
And
think he did the right thing.
then like right after I left, like the riots blew up, and then I was like, yeah, and then there's going to be an election. Like, I'm not going to stick around for this.
I couldn't. I'm not. I mean, we left LA in 1991. I could never even consider living there again.
Yeah.
I was there 27 years.
And I bet while you were there,
huh?
I bet while you were there, it's part of the heyday, you know, like part of the good times, you know.
Yeah, but it just got so crowded and so violent, especially in the 80s. Holy cow, the violence was unbelievable.
Yeah, the riots and all that happened down there.
But even just routine shooting deaths in 1988, really? Yeah, there were
early
1,100 shooting deaths in LA County alone.
Wow.
That's a lot. That was more than Beirut that year, and they were at war. Yeah. So it was just between the traffic and the awful air and just the violence. I mean, you know, your chances of getting shot, I think, were like 1 in 1,000 or something. I mean, it's just no good.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm not a gun guy, you know, but I have a lot of friends that are, and the West Coast and the way things have been going, it makes me go, should I go learn how to shoot? Like, I mean, you know,
I've had one. I've owned a gun when we were living in LA. Yeah. And long story, but it got stolen by a plumber.
Whoa.
Who was fixing a drain. We stepped out for a couple of minutes and came back. And when he split, I noticed because we had just gone camping and I'd had it with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew where it was. That was just days before the plumber came. So I felt bad about that. And I was never really that into being a gun guy. I've never been that. I'm not a Second Amendment guy by any stretch. And I never replaced it. But sometimes I know. But the thing about it is, you can't be ready. A very long story, and I'm just going to hint at it, but our house was shot into. And that 357 was in arm's reach. But when people are going to shoot, they don't send invitations and tell you what time they're coming by. And having that gun did nothing. It didn't help one iota. And somebody had gone down the street and shot into 5 houses, ours being the first. Yeah. So all my gun proponent, not too many of my close friends are gun guys, but the people who I do know are gun guys. I keep saying, well, good for you. You think you're safe, but you know, you cannot, they're never going to tell you when they're going to shoot at you or your kids. It just happens. And don't kid yourself that everybody being armed is the safe way to go, because it ain't.
Yeah, it's so rare that good guy actually stops the bad guy with the gun scenario, right? That's a myth. So rare.
A fantasy. That's a fairy tale is what that is.
Yeah. I mean, you hear about it like less than 1% of the time. And I mean, and the cops are supposed to be the good guys with the guns stopping the bad guys with the guns. And obviously some of that stuff does happen, but you know, in the climate that we're in, it's been like a lot of unarmed people that have been getting shot. And you're like,
that's exactly right. I mean, and
all right.
And clearly we see the bad examples of the police. They're not all like that. I have cops in my family.
Correct.
But, you know, just like anything else, you have to weed out the bad and work on it. You got to figure out where the problems are. And unfortunately, the left decided to use the term defund the police, which is not even close to what they're suggesting. So
not the right term. Not the right term at all.
Completely wrong term. So, but yeah, the gun, everybody being armed. You know, we were in England, met some people hiking on this trail in Cornwall. And these people are clearly older, conservative people. And they weren't like some radical lunatics and in either direction. And we started talking a little bit, and they finally said, but man, what we don't understand is your gun laws. You guys are killing each other for what? And he proceeded to tell me that in England, when you buy a gun, you register it, and you have to renew the registration. Do it the same way as if you had a car, right? And he said, I didn't renew a license, and within 3 weeks, the police were at my door. They just said, hey, do you still have this gun? Show it to us. Why haven't you filled out your paperwork? things like that. The Second Amendment people here aren't even for that.
Right.
You know, it's just, you know, we're just not very civil anymore here. We really aren't. It's sad. It was a good dream, and I'm hoping we get back on course. But it's nonsense. But yeah, I know the feeling about, you know, well, maybe I should have one again or something like that. It's
Right.
especially when you see that these militia people, what they're up to.
Right. And it's not even that I even have any objective around having a gun necessarily. It's just the fact that it seems like so many other groups have them. And it's not like I'm not trying to go out and use it. And that's always been the thing for me, is like, you know, the kind of live by the sword, die by the sword type of thing. Like if you're going to
Exactly. Right.
if you invite the energy into your life, if all of a sudden you have a tool, then there's some magnetic draw to finding a reason to use it.
Tools want to be used, and we want to use them.
Yeah.
And it's really true. And usually it's the bad guys who are stockpiling this stuff. It's like, really, what do you?
Yeah. It's hard to think about simultaneously, you know, preparing and preventing the war or, you know, a conflict of sorts, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes it seems like a piece of paper with some words on it is more important than kids' lives. And it's just a drag, you know. They're children, as we see people walking into theaters, people walking into schools and just mowing down kids. Obviously they're sick, but other countries don't sell arms to the mental patients. We do. You know, the first thing Trump did when he came in office was to get rid of a law Obama had put in saying that you can't sell guns to a mental patient. Why, other than your disdain for a black man in the White House, why would you want to do that?
Right.
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's one of the very first things he did. And I always tell these people, I said, really, is that law, that piece of paper, that Second Amendment thing that you are, first of all, misconstruing completely, but that's more important to you? It's more important to you to say you can have a gun than it is for these kids to have their lives back? Really? It's just, it's sad, man. I don't understand how people can feel that way.
Yeah, I can't either. And it's not an actual reverence for life. It's not an actual reverence for it, you know.
No.
Like it's like I think that's where it's like a lot of times, you know, I believe in that a lot of like pro-lifers and the right-wing Republican, like conservative group actually thinks that they're pro-life, you know, and actually I think that they believe that they're doing the right thing, you know, based on their beliefs through the Bible or God or any of these things. But if they would just stop for a few minutes and really think it through, well, how is it that I don't want any of these babies to not come into the world, but I don't want any social safety net for them when they come into the world.
Yeah, the second they're born.
And let everybody have a gun. Let them shoot each other. It's like,
that's
what?
not life. That's not pro-life. Did you see Pete Buttigieg's statement on abortion?
I didn't. What do you say?
Oh, it's a couple of paragraphs, but he just nailed it. First of all, he said, you know, and I'm nobody I know is pro-abortion. It's pro-choice. Correct. Don't say people are pro-abortion. It's pro-choice. But he says when people have an abortion, first of all, you guys are saying that people can have late-term abortions. That's not legal anywhere.
Not true.
But what he says is you're talking about people who've picked out a name. They bought furniture for these kids. They're making plans for their babies. And then they find out the baby, it has an awful disease, or the mother's going to die, or something like that due to something going tragically wrong medically. And he said, that's 95% of abortion right there. He said, you can't just say these people are radicals, they're this, that, and the other thing. These are people who are making just a horrendous decision that they have to make to protect somebody's life. If you're pro-life, what about the mother's life? They don't want anybody to have an abortion even if it means saving the mother or if it's through incest. If their
Right.
brother rapes them, they want to see him come to a term. It's
And
nonsense.
that's ugly. That's so ugly. I can't
And
like
it's
that.
completely hypocritical.
Yeah.
That's not pro-life.
Super, super ugly to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, find that Pete Buttigieg. He says it way better than I just did.
I'll look it up. Yeah, I like Pete. I was
Good guy.
he wasn't the worst guy to. I mean, he was one of the reasonable guys on the campaign trail, and I was
He's
like,
very astute, and he's able to go on Fox News and speak quietly and lay this stuff out to them, and they're going, yeah. I don't know if you've seen him on Fox, but it's
No.
miraculous how he does that. And I always thought, oh, that'd be cool if he was president, because then we could call him President Mayor Pete.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would
Yeah.
be cool. Hey man, what do you think? Just real quick here. I know we'll wrap it up shortly, but I'm curious. It's like I like asking this question to my favorite people, and you mentioned earlier that you kind of have your own little spiritual beliefs. You're not like, you don't find yourself as a religious person, but in your best guesstimate, like, what do you think happens when we die?
You know, I'm just not sure. I'm really not sure. The way I've always thought about stuff like that is you always put your best foot forward. You always try and make decisions that are right, that are not going to hurt anyone. And if there is another life afterwards, that's setting that up. If there isn't, you know, you took the high road anyway. And if there's reincarnation, maybe I won't come back as a snake. You know, I won't come back as a Donald Trump in the future. Yeah, I really do, you know, because I know you're into it. And when I was younger, I read a lot about Buddhism and, you know, chanting and the whole thing. We went through a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does, to me, seem like the more good you do, the more good comes back to you. I've been very fortunate, and believe me, I'm not a patient guy, and I say really nasty things about this administration and did about other administrations that I didn't agree with. So I'm hardly practicing what I'm preaching all the time, but I do try and do good and be happy and pass that along to other people, and that's, you know. So I'm not really sure about afterlife. I think there could be one, because even scientifically they said energy has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just die. It just doesn't stop. But whatever it is going to be awfully crowded, no?
I know, right?
A lot of people have died.
Have you ever like felt like you felt a presence of someone that has passed on that was close to you?
No, but a couple of times when I was real little, I had out-of-body experiences.
Tell me about that.
Which is weird. I remember once specifically being in the back seat of my mom and dad's car on some long drive I didn't want to go to, and I was sort of, I would get in this, and it wasn't anything I did. I would just notice that when I would be hearing things, it's like if you were watching a movie, it wasn't firsthand. Then I was kind of realized I was kind of looking down on myself from above and hearing all this, and as though I was just a spectator. It wasn't me down there in the back seat. That happened a couple of times. I'm trying to think where it happened the other time, if it was in the car or not. And that was about it. My sister and my dad, who's no longer with us, my dad, we had my grandmother's sister, Aunt Caroline. She lived in LA. Little old Italian lady about yay big, and when her husband died, she never wore another color but black for the rest of her life. Those old Italian women are just in mourning eternally. Mm-hmm. So but she was great. She was pretty funny. And when she passed away, my sister had spent, I think all of us had, this was just weeks or months after she had passed away. It just happened to be that we were all visiting my folks and at the house. And the next morning, it turns out my sister and my dad saw her, or an image of her.
Wow.
Coincidentally, it just sort of one of them, my sister just mentioned it, and then my dad, who is not someone you would expect. My dad was a dock worker, and he'd go out drinking with the guys, and he was a bartender on weekends. And so he's not a guy who, like I told you earlier, he didn't read, he didn't.
Right.
But he said he saw Aunt Caroline in the hall, the same place my sister saw her. Yeah. How about you?
I've had a few of those interesting kind of out of body experiences, like kind of like you're experiencing, or that you had experienced, and a few of them were kind of strangely tied to dreams too at different times, like flying dreams. There was I had flying dreams as a young child, and what was interesting about it was that I was in my exact neighborhood, and I was like floating above the tree line, just above the tree line, and I was looking down, and it was very crystal clear, like exactly my neighborhood. And
it was like Google Maps before.
Exactly, it was like Google Maps before Google Maps existed, and it was a couple times. It was also like where I was kind of in a plane, or I took off in a plane. And then all of a sudden the plane was gone. And it was just me, and it was it was a field like in the city in the little town that I grew up in, and it's like I could very clearly see the pasture, and like I had to duck underneath some power lines, like stuff like that, and then I had
Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, I thought it was incredible. Like I wasn't scared.
Right.
And
I'm afraid of heights, but when I had dreams like that, I wasn't.
Same. Like I'm leery of heights. Like I'll go up to, as long as like there's something to grab onto, I'll go up to most places. But if it's too high and too risky, I'm like, nah.
Literally do this when I'm near an edge.
Yes, mine will start doing the same thing. And I've had a couple times where I kind of in different states had these timeless moments where I felt outside of my immediate existence, and felt I had like some sort of cosmic vision or understanding of that was outside of the time that I was that the body was existing in. I was out.
Time machine.
It's like stuff stopped. It's like it's not like exactly like the movies, but it's kind of like if you ever see like a time flick where they're able to press pause and everything else pauses, but they get to keep moving around. It was, I had some of that type of stuff as a kid.
Wow.
And then later on, like I experimented with some hallucinogens, and I had another experience that was kind of like that. And then it came back again when I was at a meditation retreat. And that was probably the most profound one, because I was stone cold sober. And had just been meditating for 5 days, being completely silent, hadn't, speak at all at these things.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden I had this really, they have what they call sittings of strong determination in Vipassana, right? So that you after you've been there for a little while taking instruction, they start to ask you to be more and more disciplined about your posture and how you're being. You're sitting up, you're sitting straight, and you're sticking with the thing that you set in at the beginning of the thing. You don't try to move and like adjust and you just accept the pain in the knee, the pain in the back, the pain in the neck, all these things that come, and you keep breathing, you keep your focus. And it was, I don't know, it was day 6 or something there. And that really, I don't know, something clicked, and I just stayed, and I could feel all the pain in my knees and my back and all the stuff, but I wasn't reacting to it. And
so
I was
just it was almost like a secondhand pain, or it's like you knew it was there, but it wasn't affecting you, or.
Yeah, it was, I was observing this body experiencing those sensations, but I didn't, finally, it was like I was at a point where I didn't have to react to it, and I could just observe it as sensation. And that experience lasted through that full hour or hour and a half or whatever session that was. And as everybody left the meditation hall, I just stayed there. I immediately, as it was kind of like that session was coming in, I came into this state of bliss that I had never quite experienced in that way. I mean, I had kind of like peeked at it through a hallucinogen, through a mushroom trip, and that was really interesting. Like, oh, there's a thing. And then all these years later, here I was like experiencing it, but like more profoundly, because there was additive. There was
There's no
nothing.
stimulus or anything like that. Just
No, just being still and learning to accept the sensations as they came. And
quiet
watch
is
it.
a good thing.
Oh, quiet and still. That's a powerful drug.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a book I may still even have somewhere. After moving, it's really hard to know where anything is. It takes.
Sure.
We were in the other house for 29 years, so
Oh man.
you amass stuff thinking, "Oh, I'll never move again." But there was this great book. I think I got it in the 70s, and I think the title is something like "Control Your Own Dreams," and they teach you there's an actual method of becoming lucid while you're asleep and dreaming, and it worked. And you mentioned piloting an airplane and the airplane goes away. Well, I had a Volkswagen bus at the time, and I was dreaming I was driving, and then I pulled back and went up in the air, and I knew I was dreaming, and I knew, oh, I can do whatever I want, and it was so peaceful but cool. I mean, it was really fun. And it's like you said, when you're in that moment. But this book, I need to find it because it's fun. It's like hallucinating without drugs. It's just
Sounds like fun.
Control your dreams. Yeah.
Especially because drugs just take you're in for the ride for as long as they're going to last in your system.
Yeah, dreams. This could have been, for all I know, a split second.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell how long dreams are, but
yeah, who
usually
knows
they're
how
pretty quick, I guess.
Wow, that's cool to imagine. To driving your bus around and having full control into the cosmos.
Yeah, and then like you say, I don't know if in the dream the bus disappeared or not, but all of a sudden I wasn't aware of the bus. I was aware that I was flying. And like I say, I'm definitely afraid of heights. I can't go near the edge of anything, man. I don't even like being this tall. So so yeah, and I wasn't afraid. It was great. Yeah.
Man, George, that's awesome. That's a great story.
If I find the book, I'll email you the name.
Yeah, please. I go to the new and used bookshop here every once in a while, and I'm thankful to live in a town that we still have a record store. We actually have a record store with
that's
vinyl.
Great. That's
so
great.
I go to books and I still buy that stuff. I still take in a lot of audiobooks and stuff like that because I have found that I do absorb maybe a little bit better when I can just keep listening to a chapter until I get it. Audible has been a godsend.
I've not gotten into it, and I've not gotten into podcasts because I notice I tune stuff out. Unless it's music, it's like having the radio on and they're talking, and pretty soon I'm just looking around and enjoying it. And I'm not paying that close attention. So it's never really, everybody's different. So
yeah,
I know they're great, and I wish I was into those podcasts, but I checked out some while I was in a hotel room, and pretty soon it's like the dog in Peanuts. All he sees, blah, 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 or whatever.
Wah, 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 wah,
Yeah,
wah, wah.
yeah. It just becomes, I don't know what, I lose it.
Yeah, I wasn't really into it, and I think it was somebody sent me a really intriguing Rogan podcast probably 4 or 5 years ago, and that's what kind of I was like, oh, this is really great to listen to these particular people talk. Sometimes I put on a podcast and I do the same thing. I tune right out. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna turn that off because if it's not gripping me or making me want to tune in, then it's probably not worth it, And
but if there's a visual thing, I've sat through TED Talks.
Sure.
But if it's just a book or something, and I'm not in the car that much. I don't spend like an hour and a half or whatever in a day in the car.
It's a good point. I actually got into the audiobook and lecture thing a lot when I was doing that commute from
yeah.
So okay. that actually probably is where that really happened for me. So well, man, I just want to say thanks, dude. Like, this has been a great conversation. It's been really great to catch up with you.
It's been too long.
Yeah, it's true. Let's I'll when this is all done and edited, I'll let you know when it's up and we can share it and all that.
Cool. Is it on where is it? Is it on what's your site? It's probably in the email, and I just need to click on the link, right?
Yeah, it's okay. It's Players Pick Podcast is the name of the podcast that you're on right now. And I have a YouTube channel and it's on every audio format. I mean, it's on Apple, it's on Google, it's on
no kidding.
Yeah, Spotify, all that stuff. So
how long you been doing it?
I started recording late 2018. I launched it in early 2018, and this is episode 61.
Wow.
So, yeah, just the first chunk of them were all audio because I didn't know if I was going to do this long term. I thought, I'll just do a few and see if I like doing it, see if anybody cares. And it just continued to be fun. And then when COVID hit, I was already trying to move towards video. I was going to start having people come to the house in East Hollywood there. And I did one episode where I'm going to do a live thing and have guests and kind of be like a host and this thing and just kind of off the cuff and have fun.
And Mother Nature said, forget about it.
And then no more. It said, like, you got to isolate and do this on Zoom. But then, thankfully, the right tool came along at the right time. Zoom was there ready. And
so are you using Zoom to record the audio and the video?
Yeah. I record all that. I do it on my end. I put it through my Focusrite, interface here, and then I use Final Cut to kind of piece it together at the end and put a little audio filter to try to compress and make it a little
that's
bit
cool.
nicer.
Yeah, excellent.
Cool. Super fun. Well, man, thank you again. I really appreciate the time and
it was fun, man. I'm glad we got to, solve all these world problems that we were.
Yeah, everything's solved. No problem. Everybody go back to a nice, peaceful world now.
Exactly. Everybody's going to be nice, and all the food's going to taste better. And
way better, thankfully.
Exactly. We're all going to be healthy.
Do you have a release date for the album?
November 20.
Ooh, it's coming up.
And I'm going to I made a little homemade video for the first song, King of Your Despair. And I'm probably going to put that up on YouTube today or tomorrow, whenever I get off my butt, and I'll throw a little teaser out there on Twitter and on Instagram. I've lost Facebook. I just decided it was too toxic, so I don't deal with Facebook, and I don't like the people who run it. And I know they own Instagram, but I use Instagram mainly for my photography hobby.
Yeah, which I like.
But yeah, I'll announce that, and then on November 20th, it'll be available for downloading and for purchase, and it'll go to Spotify and all the others, Amazon and blah blah blah, and the money will go to probably Habitat for Humanity. So, and
it'll just be George Marinelli at Bandcamp or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think it's Bandcamp / George Marinelli, and then that, so far this will be the only album on Bandcamp. I've never messed with them before. I may after a while go put the others on there. There's like 4 or 5 other solo albums going back to 2010. So yeah, Bandcamp, and album is Self-Made Fool. And
that's great. I'll put a link to the Bandcamp in the description below. So anybody listening to this, post November 30th, will be able to go right to it.
November 20. But yeah. November 20th. And I'll send you, I'll find out exactly what that link is. I'm just talking off the top of my head. I may be wrong about it, but I think it's just Bandcamp / George Marinelli, bandcamp.com.
All good, man. We'll find it. We'll make it work.
Figure it out. Thanks so much, George. The gaps.
Yeah, I appreciate you very much, man. And we'll stay in touch, okay? I'll talk to you.
All right. Wish I saw you more often in person.
It'll happen. It's going to shift.
Oh, yeah. This ain't forever.
Yeah, that's right. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Bye.
Peace.